Well, hey, welcome to another episode of Harriet's Florida Kitchen. I'm Harriet, this is my kitchen, and Florida's out the window on a very hot summer day. I'm sure it's up in the hundreds. Anyway, what else do you want to make on a day like this but cold soup? So, years ago, we used to take our children up to a mountain where Swanee, Tennessee is, where the University of the South is. And we used to go specifically to a little village called Mont Eagle. And at the bottom of that mountain was a little town called Cowan, Tennessee. And there was a restaurant there called the Corner House. So my friends and I, when we put our children in sort of the summer camp that they have running, we would get in our car and we would go down to the bottom of the mountain to have lunch, very civilized, grown-up mother lunch. And they served a great thing called white gazpacho, which is really a cold cucumber soup. And we spent hours trying to figure out what was in the soup, and they never gave away the recipe until one day, years later, a book came out that had a bunch of recipes from great restaurants. This one was called Dining in the Historic South, and so they had the white gazpacho recipe from the Corner House. Great news. So we were able then to make it, and actually it pretty much went with what we had suspected was in it. Maybe we left a few things out, but mostly we knew what was in it. Then I went to Berlin, and I ate a cold soup. It was exactly the same soup, only it was a little thicker, and it had some dill mixed in. So, really liked it a lot. So I decided I would adapt the Cowan, the Corner House white gazpacho recipe, and that is what I'm making today. So, I am pulling this over to the counter, and it is super easy. You'll not believe it takes about 8.5 seconds to make this. Now, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to cut up the cucumbers, which I'll put, let's see, can you see the cucumbers? Yes, you can. Okay, I'm going to cut up the cucumbers, and the easiest way to do that, you can either get seedless ones, which, I don't know why I don't. Anyway, I didn't. So, oh, no, I didn't want to do that first. What I wanted to do first is I want to peel them. So, the easiest thing to do is to just get a peeler that does like this, and as you can see, you just get the peeling off pronto like that. Get all the pieces off. I'm doing it kind of clumsily. And this is super sharp, works like a charm. Okay. Now, what we'll do is throw that away. And the important thing is how to get the seeds out. So I'll show you how to do that. And I won't do all four. I won't do all four of the cucumbers this way. I'll just show you, all three. There are only three in it. And so what happened was, when I figured out what to do about the Berlin situation, this recipe originally had, and of course if you want to make it the way the Cowan does, the way the Corner House does, you can, or they used to. I'm not sure, I don't think they're there anymore. The recipe calls for 3 medium cucumbers, peeled and seeded, peeled and chunked, 3 cups of chicken broth, 3 cups of sour cream, 3 tablespoons of vinegar, and 2 teaspoons of garlic salt. So I thought, right, all I have to do, here's what I'm doing, is I just cut out the seeds that are in the middle. Very easy. Just cut into that. And cuts out like that. Or you can do it down like this. Let's see if you can see it in the camera. I think you can. And this cuts like that. Literally just cut the sort of center bit out. It doesn't matter a ton if some of the seeds are in there. Who cares? Anyway, I decided that all I needed to get that thickened Berlin version, the German version, would be to take out 1 cup of the broth and leave everything else, and 1 cup of the broth and 2 calls for 3 tablespoons of vinegar, so I would take out 1 tablespoon of the vinegar, and it calls for 2 teaspoons of garlic salt. So I really use about 1.5 teaspoons of garlic salt now in my newly adapted recipe. Okay, so that's all you do. And then you chop those up. I must have a cutting board nearby. Yes, but I've already used it, so it won't hurt it. Anyway, you chop up basically this. And you don't have to chop it up much because we're going to put it in the food processor in just a second. See how that goes. All right. I'm going to do the rest of these when you're not looking. and I'll be back in just a second to show you how to do this part. Easiest way to cut this up, let's see, we have a gross spot here, so I'll cut that out. Easiest way is to put it on a cutting board, cut against this. And okay, skin off, done, done. Get it totally out of your way. Now, you down the center of it, pretty much like this. Cut that in half too. Then you just take sort of a chunk out of the middle where the seeds are. Super simple. Got them seated just like I showed you, and then I'm going to chop these just so they'll go more easily into the food processor, which I've cleverly moved over here to this side of the kitchen so it'll be easier to film it and you wouldn't have to be sort of over there in the dark with me. All right, these are ready to go in. And let's see, I never can remember if there's going to be enough room for this size recipe. I made it the other day and I doubled it, which you can perfectly easily do, but it was a kind of a problem fitting it into the food processor. So put all this in, and I'll stop talking while I grind it. Now, what we also do is in that, this calls for, remember, I'm not doing 3 cups of chicken broth, I'm doing 2 cups of chicken broth. So, and I happen to be using the Swanson's Organic, but it doesn't really matter. You can use plain. I do like Swanson's the best. I think that's the best brand for chicken broth. But, unless you want to make your own chicken broth, which of course you can. Now, we'll put a little bit of this in, but not a ton yet. No need for that. And blend it up a little. Now, we are going to put that in my trusty, I'll eat that later. Right, I'm going to put this in my trusty favorite yellow bowl. Okay. In there. And then we put the rest of the ingredients in, and you're not going to believe this is so easy. So the cucumbers have gone in. We have 2 cups of broth that now goes in. We put in, I use this calls for sour cream. I use low-fat sour cream. I do not use no-fat sour cream because I think it's disgusting. But low-fat sour cream is a very successful diet product. And it tastes just like regular, real sour cream. And it'll be fine. It'll make this work. Now, this is not a yogurt. This is a sour cream. So sometimes I get confused when I think about it. Okay. And this is obviously a 16-ounce container. This is another one, so I'm only going to use half of this one because we're all for 3 cups. So, okay, that seems about right. Yep, looks good. I'll refrigerate the rest of it. So then, sort of start to move that around, and I kind of smash it against the bowl so it'll kind of break up more than usual, but more than it would if you try to stir it around. Okay, that's getting there. And now we're going to, now if you have a really big food processor, you could really put all of this in that food processor, it would be fine. But I'm just kind of stirring it in because it will come out in disgusting, oozy, drooly ways out of my food processor onto the counter, which we don't want. Looking good. Oh, there's a great big chunk. Hold on. Take that out. All right. Next thing we put in is we will put in the 2 tablespoons, and this is adjusted. It usually calls for 3 tablespoons, but we're doing the Berlin technique. So that's 2 tablespoons. And we're using apple cider vinegar, but if you are stuck with white wine vinegar or even red wine vinegar, which might not be so great because you'll kind of screw up the color, but it would be fine. The flavor would be great. All right. You certainly don't have to use expensive vinegar. And the last thing we're going to put in, it calls for 2 teaspoons of garlic salt, and so we are going to put in 1.5 teaspoons. As I've said before, there are some older recipes that call for lots of salt, and I just, today's taste buds just aren't the same. So you can try even with 1 teaspoon, and if you want more, you can put it in, because you're not going to do anything else to this soup except stir it up. And that's the way you make the soup. That's it. It takes about 5 minutes. If you are on Weight Watchers, I figured it out, and the way I figure it, 1.5 cups of this, using the low-fat sour cream, 1.5 cups of this is 3 points. Now I'm saying this on the 21st of July 2020, so Weight Watchers changes all the time. But for now, that's how many points it is. So you can have a lot of this. It's a great diet dish, but it's also just plain delicious. You can have it every day for lunch. You can have it for dinner. You can have it for a luncheon for ladies. All right, now I'm going to turn it off because I'm going to fix a little bowl so you can see how pretty it is, because I have a great garnish. Then that is the Cowan Corner House garnish. All right. Now, one of the great pleasures of eating a wonderful cold summer soup like this is presentation. Now, I have repurposed one of my grandmother's finger bowls, which makes a perfect size little bowl, but this is not 1.5 cups as I measured my Weight Watchers, because this is another bowl that, well, I won't bother with that. Anyway, this will put about 1 cup in it, so that's probably only 2 points, but you can measure it out yourself. You can figure it out. Anyway, what I'm going to do in order to sample it is I'm going to push this back, pour some of this into it. So good. Then the Cowan Corner House would put in, now in Berlin they put in dill, which I totally think is great. You should do it too. You can either use fresh dill, you can use dill weed, do not use dill seed. And but the Corner House would put a little bit of tomato, and they put in a little bit of scallion, maybe a little bit more than that. And then they put in some toasted almonds. And then they eat it, and I tell you, there's never enough if you were having it at the Corner House. It was so good. So I'm going to take a little bite of it. And what I'll do with this right now is I'll put it in the refrigerator, and it'll be there, and we can have several meals from this. Okay, so really good, really good. And that 1.5 teaspoons of garlic salt, I think is perfect. I think it's just great. I'll have a little bit more just to make sure. Really good. Okay, and that's it. Now, is that an easy soup recipe or what? It is a hot summer day, and you want something cold. In fact, you want quite a lot of it, and you don't want to gain a lot of weight. Have this. It is just great, and you'll be amazed at also how filling it is. But it's crunchy. It's crunchy because of the cucumber. It's cold. It's got that little bit of garlic. It's got a little bit of vinegar, so it's got a little tang to it. And I think you'll be amazed. It's one of the best soups you'll ever have. Don't I always say that? Okay, this is Harriet's Florida Kitchen saying bye. Thank you for joining me.